Guys, please check your audio and video settings, please. Guys, please check your audio and video settings, please. Yeah, yesterday file is corrupted, boss. I don't know how to recover it. If anyone is having solution, let me know. Yeah, look at this MVC. It is coming like this. Anyone is having solution for this problem? I'm not able to open by using paintbrush. Entire file got corrupted. That's why I couldn't upload yesterday. See, when I'm trying to open, is not currently supported. No, there is no upload another batch file. I don't know what content I taught for other batch, boss. So rename to JPG. Yeah? Rename to JPG. Someone is giving suggestion. Rename to JPG. Dot JPG. Rename to JPG. Open with paint. Not coming, boss. Acha, Mr. Hivale, this is yesterday's document. Huh? I don't think so. This is yesterday's document. How come you got, guys, without me uploading that one? Previous batch, I don't think I have taken the same angle, boss. Because batch to batch, I generally change the way, because I really don't remember. That's the problem. Because which order the content came, that all depends upon the flow, boys. Okay, I think this is next class content, if I am not wrong. Model 1, Model 2, MVC, this is okay. Advantages, disadvantages, front controller. Okay, I think very here detailed explanation is not given, boss. I think like your batch, I have not given detailed explanation to this batch. I just explain what is front controller and MVC advantages. I didn't explain much. Okay, but for your batch, I have given very detailed explanation about front controller. Very elaborately I talked. Anyone is having? If anyone is having, let me know. Okay, please send me one copy. This is morning 7 a.m. batch, but very limited information it is having. Right. Okay. MVC to principles, guys. From here I copy. From here I copy. Class content, Spring 613, MVC. Let me delete this file, guys. June 2nd dot. June 2nd. Yes, boss. Let's come to today's discussion. Yes, MVC, Spring MVC intro, June 3rd. Acha, right click edit, everything is done, guys. Leave it. All experiments are done. Dispatcher servlet, June 3rd. Okay, boss. Now tell me. 4 approaches of developing Spring MVC application. 4 approaches of developing Spring MVC web application. Okay, guys. Yeah. Okay, guys. Using XML driven configurations. B. Using annotation driven configurations. Yes. Using 100% code driven configurations. 100% code driven configurations. Next, using Spring Boot. Using Spring Boot MVC. Right, boss? Though dispatcher servlet, though dispatcher servlet is predefined servlet component. What component, guys? Though dispatcher servlet is predefined servlet component, it's a configuration to servlet container is mandatory. Is mandatory, providing logical name. Okay, fully qualified class name. Fully qualified class name and URL pattern. URL pattern enabling load on startup and etc. Enabling load on startup and etc. Yes, guys. Now tell me, in A comma B approaches, in A comma B approaches, we use web.xml file to configure dispatcher servlet. Come on, guys. Web.xml. In A and B, definitely XML is allowed, guys. In A and B, XML is allowed. That's why web.xml. What approach, guys? Declarative approach. Yes, boss. Tell me. In C comma D, C comma, we use programmatic approach. What, guys? Programmatic approach. We use programmatic approach to configure dispatcher servlet. To simply literally configure what, guys? Dispatcher servlet. Are you listening my statement, guys? This is A comma B approaches. This is C comma D approaches. We use programmatic approach to configure dispatcher servlet. Okay, boss. Now listen. 3 ways of configuring servlet component. 3 ways of configuring servlet component to servlet container. I think as other day we discussed this also. Declarative approach. What approach, guys? Declarative approach. Yeah, I know everyone is excited to study Spring MVC flow. But before Spring MVC flow, I'm going to give wonderful content, boss. Please concentrate. Everyone ignores this content. I want you people to focus on it. I'm going to give so much knowledge about dispatcher servlet first. Okay, web.xml. Yeah, this is for what, guys? For predefined servlet components where XML is allowed. where XML is allowed. XML configurations are allowed. Where XML configurations are allowed. Next, this is web.xml. Tell me next one. Annotation approach using @ web servlet, right? Using @web servlet. Tell me, guys, for user defined servlet component where XML configurations are not allowed for user defined servlet. Next, C, programmatic approach. Programmatic means Java code using sc.add method. sc.add method. Which method? Add servlet method. For predefined servlet component where XML configurations are not allowed. Okay, listen. I want to configure dispatch servlet, but web.xml is allowed in the application. Then go for declarative approach. I want to configure user defined servlet. XML is not allowed. Annotation @web servlet. On the top of classes, our classes, we can add annotation. I want to configure predefined servlet. XML is eliminated in 100% code driven approach. In 100% code driven approach, come on, guys. Okay, Spring Boot approach and XML is not entertained. Then we have to go for programmatic approach, guys. Okay, then we have to go for programmatic approach. Not in Spring Boot MVC. In Spring Boot MVC. Okay, guys. In Spring Boot MVC, okay, the logic to configure dispatcher servlet in programmatic approach. What, guys? Programmatic approach will be taken care by Spring Boot itself, MVC itself internally. That means whatever programmatic approach we use, that code we write manually in 100% code only. In Spring Boot we don't write that code. That will taken care internally by Spring Boot MVC itself. This is one more beauty, boss, right? This is one more beauty to concentrate. Okay, guys. Now listen. Yeah. Sir, why should I enable load on startup on dispatcher servlet? Why are you recommending? Is it mandatory or optional? Array, front controller servlet is such a important servlet for entire Spring MVC application. Nothing but what is that? Dispatcher servlet. If load on startup is not there, what happens? First request comes to what? Dispatcher servlet. I mean to say web application. Dispatch servlet traps it. Uh, that time servlet container loads the class, servlet class, dispatch servlet class, creates the object, initialize the object. Okay, then it becomes ready for request processing. Then response goes to browser by after processing request by taking support of other components. Second request comes to same web application. Again, dispatcher and servlet traps it. Since object is already there, directly takes for processing request. That means what happens, guys? Compared to first request, there will be small delay in first request. Sorry, compared to second and third request or other than first request, there will be small delay in request processing or not. There will be small delay in the request processing of first request. Agree with me, guys? There will be small delay in the request processing of first request. Agree with me, my dears? Are you understanding, my dears? Come on. Speak out, my dears. I want reply. Yeah, I don't want to have that kind of what delay, boss. That to dispatch servlet is such an important servlet. If I create object, uh, mistake in nota. In Spring Boot MVC, the logic to configure dispatch servlet in programmatic approach will be taken care by ayo, care by Spring Boot itself internally. Now happy? Right. Now come back. We generally configure any front controller servlet by enabling load on startup. So, so uh, the loading comma instantiation comma initialization of front controller servlet instantiation comma initialization of front controller servlet. Are you listening my statement, guys? Initialization of front controller servlet takes place either during server startup or during the deployment of web application. Either during server startup or during the deployment of web application. Are you listening my statement, boss? We generally configure any front controller servlet. Okay, guys. This helps to reduce the request processing time of first request and to equalize with other than first request. I think you studied this point of load on startup in servlet also. Same thing, boss. For example, new hero, okay, new movie of a popular hero. On the day of release, go stand in the queue for half an hour, get the ticket, watch the movie. Watching movie is very important activity. Okay. But going before half an hour, standing queue in the half an hour, fighting with others, getting a dust allergy, getting corona allergy, and watching movie. Very risky or not? Very risky or not? Then what we do? What we do? Advanced ticket booking before 15 days, before 10 days only, you book the tickets through online process, right? On the day of movie, release, just go there, sit and watch the movie. So that what happens, guys? No time will be wasted to collect the ticket, right? You can directly Go and watch the movie. Same thing here also. If I don't enable load on startup, what happens? When I give first request, dispatcher servlet has to be loaded, instantiated, initialized, then request processing, and response goes to browser. Other than first request, directly request processing, response goes to browser. So these two, what happened? First request is having little delay in response generation compared to other than first request. No, sir, first request also should get faster response generation. Very simple. Do these things before arrival of first request. Do these activities of servlet loading, servlet instantiation, initialization, either during the deployment of web application or during the server startup, either during the deployment of web application or during the server startup. I hope you are getting my point, guys. Yes, boss. Now listen. Dispatcher servlet configuration in web.xml file. What file, guys? In web.xml file. Dispatcher servlet configuration in web.xml file, guys. What is the code? Actually, you can copy paste, not a problem. Amar, what is this? Though dispatcher servlet is predefined servlet component, its configuration in servlet container is mandatory. Providing logical name, yes or no, is mandatory, which should be done by programmer. Only in Spring Boot it will be done automatically. In remaining places, we have to take care manually. But tell me, first of all, I'm going to teach directly Spring Boot? No. First, I'm going to teach XML, 1-2 example, next annotations, then 100% code, then Spring Boot, right? Amar. So I'm going to teach XML based configuration. That's the reason we have to configure manually, boss. So let me get the class name of dispatcher servlet, guys. This is the package name and class name of dispatcher servlet. Okay, boss. Now listen. Web app tag. Servlet tag. Servlet hyphen name tag. Here is my dispatcher. Servlet hyphen name tag. Servlet hyphen class tag. Servlet hyphen class tag. Yeah, when you are enabling load on startup, what any priority value you can take, either 0 or 1, but it should be positive number or 0. You cannot take negative number. Enabling load on startup with a negative priority value is equal to not enabling load on startup. Is equal to not enabling load on startup. Agree with me, boss? Yes. Okay, it's something like this, guys. Log into Zoom classroom. Okay, sitting in front of system and sleeping is equal to not attending class or not. Or parallelly watching YouTube videos is equal to what? Not attending class or not. Parallelly playing games in the tabs is equal to not attending class or not. What do you say, guys? Yes. Enabling load on startup with a negative value as the priority value is equal to what? Okay. Not enabling load on startup, guys. Okay. Fine. High value indicates low priority, low value indicates high priority. When multiple servlets are there. When only one servlet is there, you can give any positive number or 0. Okay. Right now, we are going to have only one servlet. in our Spring MVC application. That is dispatcher servlet. That's why you need not to worry much about this number, but make sure that it is positive number or zero. Make sure that it is positive number or zero. Okay, it's something like this, guys. One chubby boy came to home from school saying that today I got first prize in running competition. Oh, mother felt very, very happy. I know you are talented. No one recognizes your talent. Everyone says my son is a chubby boy. Okay, see, today you got first prize in running competition, and shared that news to neighbors, relatives. You know that once mother gets the news, entire community gets the news, right? Okay, distributed sweets and given extra snacks to boy that day because he won the competition. He came to home with a medal. Okay, lately father came to home, same thing is shared with father. You know, today our son got first prize in running competition. You will always scold him. Okay, you are don't eat. You are increasing weight. See, with this weight also you got the first prize. Father is bit intelligent guy. He didn't believe. That's why he asked. Okay, that's why he asked how many participants are there, and boy replied, "I am the only one participant." Okay, boy replied, I'm only one participant. When one participant is there, how it is first or second or last? He is first, he is last. Since in our web applications of Spring MVC, there will be only one servlet configuration, that is dispatcher servlet. So since there is only one servlet configuration, that is dispatch servlet, you give any priority value, no problem. But generally, it should not be negative number. It should be positive number or zero. Guys, so when multiple servlets are enabled with load on startup, then what, sir? High value, low priority, low value, high priority. I hope you understood, guys. So servlet name dispatcher. Any logical name you can give. Nothing is fixed here. Okay. URL pattern. URL pattern. Sir, you are not going to develop this servlet. From where it will gather? Are we add Spring MVC jars to the lib folder, na boss? We add Spring MVC related jars to the lib folder. From there it will gather. Tell me, I am taking star.htm. Otherwise star.do, star.spring. Anything you can take. Anything you can take. URL pattern. End of servlet mapping, boss. End of servlet mapping. Sir, generally we keep servlets in classes folder. Classes folder, they will be recognized automatically. But this is a predefined servlet. That means programmer is not going to develop. Programmer is not going to keep in classes folder, right? Programmer is not going to keep in classes folder. Then how does it will be collected? We add Spring MVC jars to webinf/lib folder. From there they will be collected. If it is Maven or Gradle, the jars added to pom.xml build.gradle will automatically move to build path, will also be automatically moved to webinf/lib folder. Understanding my statement, guys? Okay. So what it says, collects dispatcher servlet class, dispatcher servlet class, collects dispatcher servlet class from the jar files added to webinf/lib folder. From the jar files added to webinf/lib folder. Are you understanding my point, guys? From the jar files added to webinf/lib folder. Lib folder. What jar files, guys? spring hyphen web hyphen version.jar and spring hyphen web hyphen mvc hyphen version.jar added to webinf/lib folder. Okay, guys. So this is very important. Sir, you are not developing now. All servlets are verified in classes folder from where you collected. Anything not available in classes folder, you know that servlet container nest looks in what? webinf/lib folder. They're also not available. Then it looks for what? Server library folder. In case of Tomcat home/lib folder. Remember that? In case of Tomcat, that server library folder is what? Tomcat home/lib folder. Are you listening my statement, boss? Okay, guys. Servlet container looks for classes, looks for classes, looks for classes in the following places and order. In the following places and order. A in webinf/classes folder. webinf/classes folder. B in the jars added to webinf/lib folder. In the jar files added to webinf/lib folder. Next, B. C, guys. What is next one? C. Okay. In the jar files added to. Okay. In the jar files added to server library folder. What folder, guys? Server library folder. Yeah, like Tomcat home/lib folder. If not found, then B. If not found, then B. I think you are understanding, boss. Yes. Copy this. If not found, then C. If not found, then D. D is there, guys. If they're also not found, then what happens? D. Throws. They're also not found, guys. Okay. Throws. Class not found exception. If it is a direct class. If it is an indirect class, no class def found exception. No class def found exception. Throws class not found exception or no class def found exception. Clear, my dears? Enjoyed my point here, guys? So this is my load on startup 1. Any positive number or 0. Any positive number or 0. Next, star dot do. Extension match URL pattern. Are not fixed, guys. Extension match URL pattern. Extension match URL pattern. That's it, boss. Now, I would like to give the flow of execution, boss. Shall I start giving flow of execution, my dears? 1 minute. Okay, bit aside, boss. Okay. Shall I start giving flow of execution? So many things will happen, boss. Dispatcher servlet internally creates IOC container. This point I want to highlight. Dispatcher servlet as part of initialization, the dispatcher servlet. Array, so far I know DS means you are habituated to data source. Uppercase DS means okay. Now onwards, as long as we are learning Spring MVC or Spring Boot MVC, please feel DS means please feel too free to feel it as what? Dispatcher servlet means DS means dispatcher servlet. Okay, na? As part of initialization, the dispatcher servlet creates IOC container of type application context. Yes, by taking this is very important, boss. Okay, by taking DS logical name hyphen servlet.xml file of webinf folder. DS logical name hyphen servlet.xml file of webinf folder. Come on. As the Spring Bean configuration file. As the Spring Bean conf. Yeah, DS internally creates IOC container. Tell me, so far we developed lots of standalone applications. Who created IOC container? Programmer created. Manually programmer created. In Spring MVC application, we create IOC container or IOC container will be generated by whom? IOC container will be created by whom? I want reply, boss. IOC container will be created by whom? Come on. IOC container is created by whom? Dispatcher servlet. Guys, understanding my statement? Okay. Tell me. Okay. It is taking our choice Spring Bean configuration file or fixed notation Spring Bean configuration file. Fixed notation and location Spring Bean configuration file. Why? Our IOC container is not created by me. Sir, can I change this? Yes, you can change this. How I will talk later. For the timing, DS logical name, dispatcher. This is called a logical name, boss. Even this is also called a logical name. Yes, this is called logical name. This is called logical name. Come on. DS logical name hyphen servlet.xml file of webinf folder. Okay. So overall, what is this, guys? Example. Okay. Dispatcher hyphen servlet.xml. Yes. What is the logical name? Dispatcher hyphen servlet.xml. In which folder? Webinf folder. If you want to change the location, if you want to change this default file name, we have to go for some more configurations. Clear, my dears? Right? So what is the flow, sir? Shall we understand the flow? Number one, deployment. Number one, deployment. Number two, number two, number two. Tell me, the moment you deploy the web application, it will search, are there any listeners? Not there, not there, not there. Come on. Okay, are there any listeners? Not there. Okay, next, create servlet context object. Servlet context object creation. That's the one more thing that will happen, boss. Okay, no listeners found. No listeners found. No listeners. No listeners found. Yarrow. Servlet context object creation. Now listen, guys. No filters found. No filters found. Yeah, this is the order. First listeners class object, then servlet context object, then search for is there any filters configuration? No. So that's why no filters found. No filters found. Next, okay. One load on startup. One load on startup servlet found. Okay, one load on startup servlet found. That is DS. Come on. I hope you understood, boss. Deployment. Okay, during deployment, it will searches for any listeners are there, not there. Okay, then it will search for servlet, automatically create servlet context object. Then searches for any filters are there, not there. Okay, and after that it will search for is there any load on startup enabled servlet. Yes, one load on startup, one load on startup enabled servlet component found, guys. One load on startup enabled servlet component found. Enabled. Enabled servlet component found. That is a DS. DS means dispatcher servlet. I hope you convinced with the second one, guys. Second one also convinced. Third one. Third one. Okay. All these are happening during deployment or during what? Server startup, guys. DS class loading, instantiation, that means object creation, initialization, initialization. Okay, 1 minute, not initialization. Instantiation is done. DS class loading and instantiation is done. Number 4, servlet config object for DS is created. Array servlet config object is one per servlet na boss. Servlet config object for DS is created. Okay, number 5, detailed one. Actually, if you want, you can give one more point here. What is that, you know? Okay, 1.5, deployment and deployment and okay, deployment and in-memory metadata of in-memory metadata of web.xml by checking by checking its well-formedness and validness. Remembered well-formedness and validness. By checking its what? Well-formedness and validness. Enjoyed my point here, guys? Maybe I have not highlighted that. That's a number one. Number two, this. Number three, this. Number five, this. Number five, initialization of DS by calling init method. Init method. Tell me. In this init method, come on, guys. By calling init method, in this init method, servlet config object will be initialized to what object, guys? Servlet config object will be initialized to DS. Will be initialized to DS object as a right hand object. Remembered? And IOC container will be created. IOC container will be created by taking, come on, dispatcher hyphen webinf slash dispatcher hyphen servlet.xml as the Spring Bean configuration file. I hope you convinced with this one, guys. In the init method of dispatcher servlet, this will happen, boss. Number 6, loading of Spring Bean configuration file. Spring Bean configuration file and creating, come on, in-memory metadata by checking whether it is, what is that, well formed or not and valid or not. By checking whether it is well formed or not, valid or not. Are you listening my statement, boss? Okay, guys. Servlet config object. Array DS object itself servlet object na, Mr. Biswajit. Dirty fellow. What is DS? Servlet. Don't forget that. Okay, why another servlet object will be created? Okay. DS class loading and instantiation. Nothing but servlet class object creation here was loading of Spring Bean configuration file and creating in-memory metadata by checking whether it is well formed or not, valid or not. Super, guys. Next, number 7. IOC container performs. IOC container performs. IOC container performs. Come on, guys. Pre-instantiation of singleton scope Spring Beans. Singleton scope Spring Beans, guys. And keeps and completes injection, dependency injections on them. Completes what, guys? Dependency injections on them. Are you listening my statement, boss? Completes dependency injection on them. Fine, fine, boss. IOC container performs pre-instantiation of singleton scope Spring Beans and completes dependency injection on them, guys. Number 8. Keeps What guys? Keeps. What is that? Spring Bean class objects in the internal cache of IOC container. IOC container for reusability. I think you enjoyed, boss. This is not Spring MVC flow. These are the various things that happens when I deploy the Spring MVC application with respect to dispatcher servlet. All these things will happen, boss. Without knowing this, so many people runs after Spring MVC flow, Spring MVC flow. But if I ask one reverse question, who creates IOC container in Spring MVC? Memme bebe. Memme bebe. They don't even open the mouth, but they will talk a lot about Spring MVC flow. But this is most important before learning Spring MVC, guys. I hope you convinced, boss. Flow is crystal clear. Array, your servlet knowledge only. I'm just linking with the Springera, Babu, nothing else. Number one, deployment and in-memory metadata of web.xml by checking its well-formedness and validness, guys. By checking its well-formedness and validness. Okay, that part is clear. No listeners found. Right now, not found. In future, may be there. Servlet context object is created. No filters found. Okay. One load on startup enabled servlet component found, that is DS. That is DS, guys. DS loading. All these things are happening what? During the deployment of web application or during server startup, boss. Instantiation. DS class object is created. Next, servlet config object for DS is created. One right hand object is created. Then initialization of DS takes place by calling init method. In this init method, first of all, servlet config object is initialized with the DS object. Number two, one IOC container will be created by taking dispatcher servlet logical name -servlet.xml as Spring Bean configuration file. From which location? Web.inf location. From which location, guys? Web.inf location, right? Okay. After that, loading of Spring Bean configuration file and creating in-memory metadata by checking whether it is well formed or not. By checking whether it is well formed or not and valid or not. Agree with me, guys? IOC container performs pre-instantiation of singleton scope beans and completes their injections, dependency injections on them. Completes their dependency injections on them. Come on, guys. Number 8, keeps Spring Bean class object in the internal cache of IOC container for reusability. How many of you enjoyed my statements, guys? Remaining all are common, boss. Two new things. One is servlet is not user defined servlet, it's a ready-made servlet. That's the one new thing for us. Next, so far in the init method, we have written servlet config initialization logic and a little bit of our code. But first time we are seeing, okay, logic to create IOC containers. And that IOC container also very interesting, boss. Okay, that is not taking your choice file name as Spring Bean configuration file. It is taking, okay, Spring Bean configuration file having some fixed notation. Are you understanding my point? Yes, boss. I'm not saying fixed notation means notation is fixed, file name is not fixed. If logical name is x-servlet.xml, logical name is y-servlet.xml. Okay, now listen. Okay, this is one level. All these are what? During deployment of web application, boss. Here, 1 to 8 activities are, I bet, I challenge, go and ask any working people. Why are you enabling load on startup on dispatcher servlet? They cannot explain. Who creates IOC container? In which method IOC container is created? They cannot explain. But they say I am very good in Spring MVC. They may be good in programming, but if fundamentals are not clear, interview always consider you as a bad programmer. You might have done big, wonderful things in Spring MVC, but if you don't know all these fundamentals, he never accept you as a developer, guys. I don't consider you as a developer. Here, 1 to 8 activities takes place either during server startup or during the deployment of web application. Either during server startup or during the deployment of web application. Activities takes place. Activities takes place. Right, boss. Now listen. I'm not happy with the fixed notation Spring Bean configuration file. I want to change. Location I want to change. Name also I want to change. What should I do? That means we should provide inputs to dispatcher servlet. Now tell me, whenever you want to pass inputs to dispatcher servlet from outside servlet, two options are there. Number one, request parameters, right? Number one, request parameters. Yeah, collected from end user through browser. But end user means non-technical data. He cannot give technical data. Now tell me, name and location of Spring Bean configuration file is a technical information or non-technical information? Is a technical information or non-technical information? Non-technical information. So can I think about collecting from end user as form data? Nothing but request parameters? No. No, boss. Because it's a technical information, right? Guys, give me 2 minutes time. Guys, please come back. I got call from office. Yeah. 1 to 8 activities. 1 to 8 activities takes place. Now listen carefully, boss. If it is a technical, and another option is what? Servlet init parameters. Servlet init parameters, right? And servlet context parameters. Init parameter means specific to one servlet. Context parameters are what? Common for all web components. Okay, now listen, this will be given from where? Web.xml. Web.xml means can be given by what? Programmer. Programmer is a technical fellow or non-technical fellow? Technical fellow. So he can happily pass technical information like what? JDBC driver class name, URL, Spring Bean configuration file. He can pass a nata. He can pass a nata. Speak out, my dears. Definitely he can pass, right? Okay. Now listen carefully. Now listen carefully. Okay. When servlet component is predefined, who actually reads init parameter value? Predefined servlet reads. Okay. Inside that one, predefined servlet means init parameter name, it will read with fixed name or not? It will read init parameter name having fixed name or not? Yes. What is the fixed name in dispatcher servlet that is ready to take Spring Bean configuration file as required for the programmer? And that is nothing but context config location. What is that, guys? Context config location is one fixed init parameter, boss. Using that, you can create, you can supply your choice Spring Bean configuration file, keeping in your choice location as input value to dispatcher servlet. That means we can get control on name and location of Spring Bean configuration file if you don't want to use the default file name and location. So let's have a look, guys. Yes, guys. Now tell me here. This is web.xml, my dears, right? After that, how to pass technical info. Yeah, so far init parameter name and value is our choice. Why? Init param. Init param. Next, param name. Context config location. This is param name. Param value slash webinf slash mycfz1.xml. Param value. Close init param. Tell me, my dears, guys. Now tell me, okay, you don't like this location? Slash webinf slash cfzs. Okay. My cfz1.xml. You can give anything. Okay. You can give any name, boss. Any name as Spring Bean configuration file. Yes. What is this? Fixed init parameter. Fixed servlet init parameter of ds carrying name and location of Spring Bean configuration file. Name and location of Spring Bean configuration file. Are you listening my statement, boss? Yes. So this is the new thing, boss. But what is the theory related to that? You know that I don't give any point directly. I will give indirectly. I link with. We can pass inputs to servlet component. What guys? We can pass inputs to servlet component being from outside the servlet component. Outside of the servlet component. We can pass inputs to servlet component being from outside of the servlet component, guys. Being from outside of the servlet component. Being from outside of the servlet component. Yes, boss. Outside of servlet component using two approaches. A as request parameters. What is that, guys? As request parameters. Okay. Like form data given by end user through browser. Okay. Useful to pass technical inputs to. Useful to pass technical inputs to. Non-technical inputs to. Non-technical inputs to servlet component. Servlet component given by the non-technical end user, like given by the non-technical end user, like, come on guys, name, age, address. Tell me guys, these are technical or non-technical? Address. Okay. Designation. These are non-technical. End users can give or not. Designation and etc. Okay, boss. Okay. These values are stored in request object, guys. These values are stored in request object. These values are stored in request object and can be read in servlet component using request.getParameter method. What method, guys? Request.getParameter method. Okay, guys. This is one option, boss. Right. Another option we are having is what? Servlet init parameters and context parameters. Servlet init parameters are context parameters. Okay, guys. These values will be given by programmer, technical programmer from web.xml file. From web.xml file. Come on. Yes, guys. Useful to pass technical info from server side. Technical info from server side, like JDBC properties. Array driver class name. Driver class name, username, password, database, username, password, URL. You ask end user to give driver class name. He may write his bus driver name or call his bus driver name or lorry driver name or not. But if you ask JD technical person to pass, if you ask technical person to pass JDBC properties, he will write proper driver class name, proper URL, guys. From server side, like JDBC properties, Spring Bean configuration, file name, and location. Come on, and etc. Location and etc. Okay, guys. Servlet init parameters are specific to one servlet component. One servlet component because they will be stored automatically in servlet config object, which is specific to one servlet which is specific to each servlet component, which is specific to each servlet component. Right, boss? Servlet context parameters are specific to multiple servlet components, are common to multiple servlet component, are common to multiple servlet component because they will be stored automatically in servlet context object, which is common to all the servlet components, which is common to all the web components of web application, of a web application, all the web components of a web application. Servlet component, which is specific to each servlet component. Are you listening carefully, guys? Because they will be stored automatically in servlet config object, which is specific to servlet context object, which is common for all the web components of web application. Right, boss? Now listen. If technical info is required only in one servlet component. What, guys? Only in one servlet component. Then go for come on. Web component means servlet component, JSP components, all those things, guys, are required only in one servlet component. Then go for servlet init params. If technical info is required, if same technical info is required in multiple servlet components or web components, then go for servlet context params. Then go for servlet context params. To read servlet init parameter values, use cz dot get init parameter, method. Similarly, to read context parameter values, what values, guys? Context parameter values, use SC means CZ means servlet config, guys. CZ means what? Servlet config object. SC means what? Servlet context object. CZ means servlet config object. SC means servlet context object. Everyone understood my point? To read context parameter values, use sc.getInit parameter. Okay, but now tell me, are we going to read or dispatcher servlet automatically reads? Okay, that's why this is a fixed name or not. Because if we are reading, we can take our choice name. But who is reading? DS. DS is a predefined servlet. In predefined servlet, predefined code will be there. So that's why same name you should continue because it is internally reading cz.getInit parameter context config location. Case sensitive bus. C small letter, C capital letter, L capital letter. I think second time you understood the power of init parameters. First time in what? Servlet classes. There I passed JDBC properties. Come on. There I passed JDBC properties, which are technical info through web.xml as init parameter values. Today, one more technical info. Dispatcher servlet is looking for changed name of Spring Bean configuration, file name and location, right? Spring Bean configuration, file name and location. Are you getting my point, guys? Spring Bean configuration, file name and location, guys. Again, it is expecting from where, guys? Oh, okay. Web.xml as init parameter value, but only the thing is this time fixed init parameter name. This time it is going to be fixed init parameter name. Clear, my dears? I hope you understood both codes. This is dispatcher servlet flow. This is okay, same flow, guys, but it will take our choice name and location as what? Spring Bean configuration file name. But that you have to pass by taking fixed name as Spring Bean init parameter name. Fixed name as init parameter name. I hope you enjoyed my point, guys. Done, boss. Vishwadit first listeners, then servlet context, then filter config, then filter, then servlet config, then servlet. No, actually, first filter object, then filter config, then servlet object, then servlet config. I have a small doubt. Servlet JVM runs on server, server runs on JVM. Yes, guys, when we start the server, first JVM starts. On the top of server application runs. Server application starts container. So container application creates our servlet class objects. Layer is like this: JVM running the server application, server running the container, okay, container running the servlet component. Ultimately, all of them will be used by whom? JVM that is started, that is launched during server startup. So that's why every server is basically standalone application, boss. Don't forget that. Okay. Akshay Bhuse, JDK JVM is different. Tomcat JVM is different. Because JDK JVM says, I use garbage collector, which is having mark and sweep algorithm, right? I will destroy the object only when object is idle, when object is not having any references. But Tomcat server JVM, Tomcat server JVM, Tomcat server garbage collector is having different theory. When object is they used or not used, when destruction event rises, it has to be destroyed. It has to be destroyed. Our servlet class object should be destroyed automatically the moment destruction event rises. Got the clarity, boss? Vishwa, this order is okay, but later what I noticed is filter object. First filter, then filter config, then servlet config. That order is also okay, but more perfect means first servlet will be created, then servlet config object will be created. Right. I think today's class you gained some knowledge. Nothing, your servlet JSP knowledge, I just linked it with the Spring Boss. Okay, in Spring MVC application, we don't create IOC container because dispatcher servlet creates IOC container. Yes or no, na? Convinced or not? Done, boss. So shall we move to next level discussion, guys? Okay, next level discussion is Sushant Kumar. It is not uploading because format is not good. Because format is not good. Yesterday's document not uploading at all. Okay, moreover, I deleted. Let me check. Let me check the possibility. Okay, don't worry. I changed extension and a number of things I did, guys. Okay, it's not happening. Fine. Fine, boss. Okay, don't dare to miss tomorrow's class. If you miss tomorrow's class, your karma. Because I am going to teach Spring MVC flow. I will involve today's knowledge also as part of flow. I will give such a flow. After class, it should not be there in your brain. It should be there in your blood. Spring MVC flow should be there in your blood. If it is there in brain, you may forget. If it is there in blood, it should run 24/7. In the middle of the sleep also. Okay. Which two boxes, Ra Babu? That two boxes. Which two boxes? Which two boxes, my dear? Tomorrow that two boxes diagram will be discussed. I don't know which two boxes. Right? Come and see. So many boxes will be there in my diagram. Fine, boss. Complete flow, no logical assumptions, but study today's class and come. And that is the base to develop first Spring MVC application. And without asking question on Spring MVC flow, no one completes your interview. If they complete also, you don't allow. Got it? Next. One more problem is there. If you explain Spring MVC flow perfectly, neatly, strongly, confidently, no more questions on. Okay. No more questions on. Got the point or not? Spring MVC. No more questions on Spring MVC. Are you listening? If you don't respond, if you don't answer Spring MVC flow normally, okay, they will ask so many questions in Spring MVC because to confirm whether you are good or not in Spring MVC. And moreover, most of the real-time projects are there in Spring MVC, and it will even help you to explain the projects properly. It will definitely help you to explain the process effectively, boss. Enjoyed my point, guys? Right. Thank you, guys. Have a nice time. Shushant Kumar, ask your question. Don't write, I have a question. Directly ask a question. APN, APPIN, APN. I never heard, but I can guess it. The person who prepares APIs. Are you understanding my point? The person who prepares APIs. So generally the people who develop RESTful web services, they are called API developers because they are developing external components having so many classes, methods, acting as business method, and these APIs will be used by different external counts. Okay. Shriyan Ghosh, I have to conduct the topic for morning batch students. Then I will record and I will give. Any idea who is Newgen Software as company? I never heard, boss. Please, I heard other from other students saying that they got the job, but I never did any R&D. Use Glassdoor. Use Glassdoor for remarks. On any software company, you want to know remarks, go for the Glassdoor. Right. It's a fake company, then leave it. No, no. Shayan goes, you cannot join in that batch because meeting ID issue. Meeting ID issue is there. You cannot join, but recording sessions will be given. Thank you. Have a nice time. Vishwadis, mail me any Spring Boot and microservice batch. After your batch, in this slot, Spring Boot and microservices only. After your batch, in this slot, Spring Boot and microservice will be there.